All right, we are live, Gilbert.
All right. So just when I was reaching, I hit the leave button rather than the got it button. So it's just, my finger was a little too fast. All right. Okay, we should be ready to go then. So please join your palms and bow. 4 great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Okay, good evening to you all. We're going to work on what I've been writing in Mind Work Forum. I had been kind of absent from Mind Work because I'd been busy with other matters, so I hadn't contributed anything there, but I had something I was working on. And normally what I do is that when something comes to me, it comes to me in the morning, and then I just continually keep typing and get the thought out or whatever the lesson is. And it just kind of flows out. So that what you've seen on Mind Work on the 2 entries are pretty much just a free flow of thought coming through the mind, and it actually came out pretty decent in terms of being able to write down in consideration of the question that was there in terms of how do we contemplate or what is contemplation. And I think that that's a really important one to work on. It's not easy for us to be able to understand what is contemplation. It's because it, like mind, defies description. It is just a direct looking or a direct knowing of whatever the subject is. And in this way, there is not a subject and object. There's just an experience of a connection between the two that is not separate, not I am looking at this, but it's just thus, and something that's very important. So yesterday I wrote this about a story of a master who was passing away, and his student or disciple had asked him, "Master, how should we remember you?" And what was really important about this was that the master looked him in the eye and then said, "Just this." So the just this actually is for this world, but the looking at from the eyes was saying just this or thusness. And it was important. I had been talking to Harry about this, and he kind of emphasized that in one of the translations. So I'm very appreciative that he mentioned that to me, because once he mentioned that the master had looked him in the eye, then it made instant sense, because the interpretations I had just said just this, which is strong, but looking into the eyes is one where there's times when I may have a contact with someone, and I will look at them, and if they are quiet enough, then it is kind of a mind-to-mind communication that goes beyond words. It goes beyond anything that one could describe, but there's kind of a mind meld there. Not quite Vulcan, I don't think, but it's a mind meld that is there, that makes a connection directly. And this is what is also called gnosis, Gnosis. And the Christians had adopted this for a while in their early doctrine, but they dropped it off this Gnostic practice in favor of this kind of a God and subject type of an approach, rather than having something where someone has a direct experience, even though there is now some movement in some churches to have that kind of a Gnostic experience, although sometimes it becomes very very dramatic. I won't say more than that, and maybe perhaps contrived, but we don't want to be contrived with it. We don't want to create anything with it. This kind of an experience is an experience of unborn and uncreated. Now, this is something that's really difficult for us to get to, because when we talk about unborn and uncreated, we come up with many different types of ways of talking about that, whether it's phenomena and noumenon, such as in the Huayan school, or conditioned or unconditioned, that's there. The unconditioned being the mind ground, we could call Dharmakaya, and then there is the appearances within it. So there's different ways that we look at it in terms of what's there, and we also look at the aspect of mind itself and what it almost appears to be a duality in mind, but it's only a duality if the approach to it is wrong. If the approach to mind is wrong, then what we see is this kind of an idea of something. But if mind is just mind, it is just simply there. It's self-evident in its nature, and it's not contrived. So the difficulty that we have is one, having faith in something that we cannot touch. Now, very interesting, it can touch us, but we cannot touch it. And if you are touching it, then it's not it. And you go, what? This is kind of a strange game we're playing, because it says, tag, you're it, but I'm emptiness. And if you try to touch me, you'll only be touching some other object. But on the other hand, there's no place I'm not. It almost comes like the riddle of the Sphinx, something undecipherable, in terms of what we're looking for. And we're very, very confused about it. But it's kind of the opposite of the riddle of the Sphinx, where it says the answer is man. And here the answer is mind. And it's difficult because I'm trying to talk to you about this, but it's hard to explain it in words, this kind of this Gnostic approach to something, this direct experience. So when we're using mind to mind, what we're doing is we have the mind ground. The mind ground is there, and then we have that which sees it. And that aspect of mind is the knowing aspect of mind, or mind's perception. Now, neither one of those is right, the way I say it. It's not mind's perception, even though I say that many times. And I say it in this way simply so that one separates it from the five skandha, the aggregates of form, sensation, perception, volition, and consciousness, that we separate it from that and say it is not an aggregate of something. It is something different than that. Its own perception is a perception that is devoid of subject and object. Now, it doesn't negate the body. It doesn't negate what the body sees or the environment. It doesn't need to do any of those things. It just simply understands the intrinsic nature of mind. And so this understanding of the intrinsic nature of mind is one that, as what we believe we are sentient beings, we are engaged in. But the trick in doing this is to move beyond the concept that we're sentient beings, to look at the entire world as mind, to look at everything you see, I'm seeing myself here, and I see behind me, all of that is the fabric of mind. There's no place else it's appearing. If we call it illusory, it's illusory. If we call it a dream, it's a dream, but that dream is in mind itself. And that's the part that's very much important to us, is that we don't go around negating the environment. If we do that, then we're wrong, because when we sit to meditate, what we don't want to do, I should say, is negate the environment. All that will do is have us end up into a very dark samadhi, a very dark kind of a non-existence type of meditation. Now, samadhi is the ability of the mind to stay in one place, to be able to keep it there. Now, it's a little easier to essentially put the mind into what I've been using as an analogy, into a cold, dark refrigerator, and shut the door. So in the cold, dark refrigerators, nothing's moving in there. It's as soon as you're there, everything turns off. There's no sight, sound, no senses, nothing except self. And then self looks around and says, hey, this must be it. But it's just like Gilbert said, what a letdown. There's nothing happening here. And then even that light goes off and it's all gone. But this is a very dead, inanimate samadhi. You're able to put yourself into that position, but putting yourself into that position, then later on, it's easy to go back there, but it's non-productive. Why is it non-productive? Because this type of samadhi does not have a counterbalance to it on what is known as vipassana, or illumination of the mind. It is just simply heavy weighted into this concentrated darkness. Now, we need the concentration to get us there, but the difficulty with the concentration is if we simply rely on concentration to meditate, we will not get there. Even though some schools, like in Vipassana studies, they use many techniques to develop concentration, many techniques, and they spend quite a bit of time doing that. But that will not, in and of itself, produce an awakening. For instance, an assassin that is on the top of a building waiting for some VIP to go by in a car down below has incredible concentration. They know precisely what is going to happen and totally aware of what's happening, what we call situational awareness. Is there enlightenment with that great concentration? No. The same thing is, one has to move beyond that concentration. That concentration is just kind of a priming of the pump to get things going, to get them stabilized. But we cannot rely on the concentration. It will not produce wisdom. And it may produce samadhi, but the samadhi that it produces, again, will fall into the dark side of samadhi. The samadhi we want is a samadhi that is vibrant, even though there's a stillness there of mind's own inherent nature. This samadhi is less like a refrigerator and more like a tuning fork. boom, and it's tuning the environment to its own tune of mind. And it's seeking to harmonize all of the environment with mind. So for instance, when we see the clouds in the sky and we feel wind, do we really understand what that movement is of why there's wind? I'm sure is there any meteorologists in the group that can explain to us why wind happens? Anybody want to take a crack at it? Double science points here if you get it. Nobody? And you watch all right, Harry's going to take a crack at it. All right. Give me a chance to have some coffee.
Variations in temperature between land and sea, and also geological structures, from the warming of the earth, the movement of the water. I don't know, a lot of factors.
You're killing me, Harry. I'll give you a participation trophy.
Okay, good, great. I'll take
it. Anybody else? It is a high pressure system and low pressure systems, which create a tendency that the high pressure system was always seeking the low pressure system essentially to equalize the pressure, thus by causing disturbance in the air, which is felt like wind or clouds or whatever. There appears to be movement there, but in actuality, all the Earth's trying to do is come back into a state of equipoise. It's very interesting, but due to causes and conditions, or around the globe, it's in continuous state of flux. But what is not in flux is the rules that govern how wind comes up or whatever. All those things are governed by its own nature. Likewise, the mind is just this way. Why? Well, it created the wind and the high pressure and low pressure system. And so it is something that we have, that we begin to understand mind. We begin to understand why there are appearances, what happens, why somebody does something, not only why somebody is prone to do something, but we see in the future what may happen. And you see it, and it's as if you're seeing in mind maybe something very good happening if you practice very well, and you see people and you can see the potential in them. Or it can be something like a train wreck. You just know something's going to happen because the indicators are there, and it's very, very predictable, just like the weather, because it works in this way. Once we begin to do mind work and we understand how mind works, and we read the tendencies in the environment as it was in the past, like, what do you think if in Oregon the temperature is 121? We're talking about 121 when they're always talking about Death Valley. They go, Death Valley is the hottest place on earth. It's 121 degrees. Well, it doesn't take a genius to figure out something is kind of moving and changing, and something's weird with all of that. So we take a look at those things and we go, guess what? I bet you it's just going to get worse unless we can reverse this. It's not an anomaly of one time. Our oceans, everything else. And we see things clearly. Unfortunately, there's not enough people that see things clearly to change the environment, but we could be reaching tilting points. Now, in our life, I won't start getting on a Greenpeace, parade here, but it is a substantial concern. But in our practice, we see things and we see the tendencies of people and what they're doing. And then we know, okay, the way this person is headed is going to be this way. It could be positive or negative, but we can read that. And that is called the illumination of the mind. This is wisdom operating to read the trends in mind. Of course, it can do that. It can do it because it's not other than mind itself. all the things that are appearing are but mind. And so we are not confused about those things. Our confusion comes by the building of of this false kind of castle in the sky that we call earth and samsara and our own self. Because ultimately it's not supportable by logic. It cannot sustain itself. It cannot be self-proving. And so when we begin to look at it, then there appears to be cracks in this idea of what we call reality, that the ancients called a dream. But because we're so deep in the dream, it's difficult for us to understand what is happening. It's as if Superman took on the persona of Clark Kent and forgot he was Superman. You go, God, what a stupid superhero that is. You know, he doesn't remember who he is. How can that be? But of course, in the world of comics, all sorts of strange things can happen. But so too here in this dream world, we believe that everything is real. But that is why there was the major movement in Buddha Dharma away from this idea of reality. And we've talked about this several times, and I talked about it in detail at the retreat. But the idea that there was a movement away from the idea that everything is real towards everything is fundamentally empty. And I use the analogy from 2001 Space Odyssey, where every time in that movie there was some kind of an epic change, a monolith would appear. And the monolith would signify a substantial change in the progress of humans. The monolith that appeared in Buddha Dharma was the Heart Sutra and the Prajnaparamita Sutras, which changed everything from everything being real to everything being empty. And this was a very important change because of the fact that we had to look at it and say, what does this mean? Everything is empty. It's easy for us to say everything is real. I knock on this table, it's real. But to say everything is empty requires first faith and later an investigation as to what this emptiness means. And that was the part that was the most important, because that is where Ekayana came in, the single mind, or just one mind. And the idea of this one mind is very important in our analysis, because this one mind then means it all belongs to mind. And this is something that the Chan school picked up very, very early as it began to pick up the sutras that were coming through. Hey, this is one mind. And they really took off on the Mahayana sutras, and they began to see it. And likewise, they began to pick up later on the Tathagata Garbha Sutras, which presented in its way another monolith, another appearance of a major change in the practice from the Tathagata Garbha Sutras. And does anybody know what that change was? This is double bonus points. Nobody? Go ahead, Santa.
Okay, that it's not just empty as in an empty cup, that it's full of potential, that is, it's Buddha nature itself.
Buddha nature. And this was a tweaking that may not have been as big of a monolith as the shift towards emptiness in the Mahayana school. And what was the critical part of this shifting in the Mahayana school? You finish up, Santa.
In the Mahayana school itself, that was the emptiness. Is that,
But
or
what,
from
what,
emptiness to Buddha nature?
what was the outcome of that before Buddha nature?
That phenomena are empty of self nature as well.
You better throw out a lifeline. Anybody want to help her? It's a simple one. What was the difference between, this will give it to you, this will be your lifeline. What was the difference between the Theravadan view and Mahayana view?
That phenomena are empty of self nature. The Theravadins believed that the phenomena were real in that they were made up of actual partless particles that were different from mind.
All right. So in doing this, and that means in your argument, everything doesn't matter because it's all empty. What good is that? What's the use of that?
It still follows causes and conditions.
Of who? Everything is empty.
But it also has form.
That's nihilism. What you're just talking about is nihilism. It's not.
It's not nihilistic. Why?
Because causes and conditions never fail.
Mark is there. Hold on. I'm going to give him a chance to help you here.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to help, but emptiness arises out of impermanence, right?
Impermanence, yes.
So, and that the view is both, everything is both impermanent and permanent, right? So we're
all right.
No.
I won't kick you to the back of the room, but you don't advance forward.
Okay.
Sue, why?
Yeah.
Sue, I know your phone. Yeah, you. What is the difference between the Theravadan and the Mahayana beyond emptiness? What was the important change?
Theravada believe there's life and death, so they do not want to come back.
So then they say, well, everything is empty. It doesn't mean anything.
They don't.
Hold on, Lewis.
Theravada does not use. They don't use the word empty.
It's the karuna.
It's compassion. It's compassion that we all have to go the same way, that all of us are basically Buddhas.
Why did you guys forget that? Compassion is that change. Anytime you hear nihilistic, you have to go to compassion. And so going back to Buddha nature, and we'll take it full circle back to Senta then what is this Buddha nature?
Buddha nature is recognizing that we are all sleeping Buddhas that need to be awakened.
It's an interesting thing because that's why I was writing today that it's as if you create a mechanical puppet and then somehow in a dream are transformed to become the mechanical puppet, completely unaware of your self nature. And then you take the form of a mechanical puppet to be your form, to be your life, to be your individual. And now you wonder why you were afraid of fire. But the thing is that, if you're a wooden puppet, that doesn't make any sense. This is the part that requires the dexterity of the mind to look at and the faith in it, that how we come to this. It is not so easy for us to get to that point to say, this world is a dream. But we are acting out in a dream this false identity of an individual self and we create this flesh and bones that walk around, engage in other flesh and bones, and are constantly verifying and certifying the existence of this realm and this nature, even though it's illusory. And we never are aware of our true identity. So we move around in this body, but the body is not us. We belong to the nominal or nominal side, that which is the mind ground. If we didn't belong to that side, we could not create this world. Think about that. Otherwise, how does the world become created? To know all the Buddhas of the past, present, and future, perceive that all Dharma, Dhatu, nature, all phenomena is created by the mind. Your hand didn't create this world. Mind created the world, but somewhere along the line, it became trapped. It became trapped in the notion that this dream is real and this flesh and blood is our body. But our true body is the Dharmakaya, where all things come from. It's the only way we could create this world. A mechanical puppet cannot create the world. There's too much going on to be able to do that. Now, gods can operate here and change the physical phenomena and perform miraculous feats. Even humans can do that sometimes. But they're still governed by the rules of this world. They do not understand that. So this idea of transcendence is the transcendence of going beyond this body, go to the other shore. What is the other shore? The Dharmakaya. In the Dharmakaya, you'll see your original face. You'll see that this world is transient in nature, impermanent, like someone said. It's impermanent. It cannot be that way. But the major change in the practice was one of an interest in the delivering of sentient beings, albeit understanding thereof an illusory nature. But nevertheless, mind is constantly trying to balance, constantly trying to come to a point where there is not aggressiveness or discrimination, aversion, vexations. These are the mind's disease. Did we not talk about that last week with Billy McCready? Billy McCready was there lying in a sick bed, surrounded by emptiness. He changed his house into emptiness. And so then he has speaking the Manjusri of what his illness is. And he said that my body will not be well until the last sentient being is cured of this illness. And it is in this way, this was a major step in terms of karuna, this compassion, unbridled compassion, and understanding that the appearances within mind are the sickness of mind. It is mind's own sickness. It is, once again, what the Buddhas use to practice is the vexations of sentient beings. We have to keep coming back to these. We have to keep coming back and joining them all together, joining all of this. All I'm trying to do today is to have a give you a way of looking at this and pulling all these different pieces that I've been talking about, and then stringing them together so that you can see how they fit. They fit impeccably, and it fits from this side, and it fits from the samsara side in terms of how one practices. In the samsara side is how one practices. On this side is mind. But we see clearly we have to have the faith to look beyond this. We do not simply set aside sentient beings. So let's say we were aliens and we came upon this place and we were looking for a vacation spot. And we go, no, this place is really bad. Everybody's wearing masks because they must be sick. They hate each other. They're killing each other. They're doing this stuff. No, let's just leave them alone and we're gone. So, but it's not that way. Or I'm getting out, but heck with everybody else. The idea of karuna is that we have an interest in fixing the ship. The ship is us. It's the body. And I've used the analogy many times that if your right hand had a cut, the left hand would have an interest in fixing it up. It wouldn't just go, hey, tough with you. That has nothing to do with me. I still work really well. And this one's going, I'm bleeding, something's wrong. Doesn't matter. No. If the lungs are full of phlegm, the heart doesn't say, it has nothing to do with me. So when we look at things, we see the things very, very clearly, that this is the body of the Buddha. This is why these things come in, because it's a very difficult thing for us to do. It's difficult for us to break through and be able to see with a different perception. So this mind perception we're talking about, as I mentioned, is different than the five skandha. This perception is a perception without subject object. It is a perception that is an instant gnosis, an instant knowing of the Buddha nature. And how could it not know that? Do you not know your body? Would you look at your body and go, hey, where did that little finger come from? I don't remember seeing that little finger before. Did it just pop up? That's really strange. No, of course you know your body. Of course you know it. And mind knows mind. The little finger may not know mind, but mind knows it. It is in this way. And we're clear about this. When we're clear about this, this is called right view, how the mind works. And we're doing mind work. When we approach it from sitting in meditation, I don't want to see anything. I don't want to have thought. That's foolishness. Stop teaching people that. Teach them right view. Of course, you're going to have thought. You're going to have all sorts of thoughts. You're sitting there. You cannot work against the nature of mind itself. The nature of mind, when it works right, it will let go of all these things naturally because it gives it no mind attention. It is not the thoughts that cause the problem. It is the activity of the mind after that the thought arises that creates the problem. The activity of clinging to that thought and giving it an opinion. I like, I dislike, I need, I desire, I don't want, all sorts of things that begin to attach. And it is in this way. It's very, very interesting because in the beginning stages of the Yogacara school of the eighth consciousness, the eighth consciousness was an afterthought. It wasn't there initially, but then they started thinking about, hey, well, how do these things happen? There's things that come in to mind, and it's not just based on memory. So so we cannot just say the seventh consciousness has memory of things. There's more to it than that. Much deeper types of things that are happening that the conscious mind does not understand. And in this level, anybody have an idea? Kind of think about mind right now and say, what else is happening there besides what consciousness can be aware of? What else is happening in mind? I'm kind of leaving it open. What would you think's there that consciousness cannot see?
The desire to continue is almost like a chain. It just want to have the movie just keep playing.
Okay, that's part of it. Good, Robert. Anybody else?
Causes and conditions.
Causes and conditions. Yeah, karmic forces we're not aware of. People keep going like, I don't know why people don't like me. Yeah, because you're always mean to people, you know, and they don't see that. But that's also running through this eighth consciousness. So all of a sudden the Yogacara school started looking at things and started seeing things a little bit different because they started realizing there's more to it than the substance that is there. And that's part of it too, this causes and conditions. You know, all of these little subtle movements of mind, we only are aware of the gross movements of mind and take those to be our thought patterns. But there's all these other subtle ones that are there that we're not aware of. You know, we may say, okay, well, we might identify and say, well, that's a habit. And, but there's much more there that's happening where we have, there's a light in your house, Mark, that good. So the thing is there's more to it than that. There's all of these things that are stringing us all together. And the reason it's strung together is because it's not other than mind. It's very interesting because the Christians way back, they ended up with the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, which kind of roughly equate to the Nirmanakaya, the Dharmakaya, and Sambhogakaya. It was a good model to copy. But the Holy Ghost came up, and actually is not referenced in the Bible, but I think a couple of times. And it was a patch job as well to say there's got to be something there that this kind of a glue that holds us all together, just like the eighth consciousness is there. And so we have to see that, but this is the Dharmakaya. And so it's not just the glue, it is the factory where all of these thoughts come from. And so it's very, very interesting when we see things in this way, because then we see not that I want to go to the big spirit in the sky, or I want to see the Buddha, or I want to do that. It is this understanding how mind works, and that we don't try to anthropomorphize the Buddha. That's probably the worst thing we can do, although quite a bit of devotional practice is concentrated towards that way. And it's not bad, because it's what we say in Spanish, mejor que nada, better than nothing. But if we really want to get to it, we have got to get to the basis of all appearances. And that's why all of the Tathagata Garbha Sutras and the Wisdom Sutras are all going towards saying, these are appearances, no, but we cannot dwell there because there's no place there. You can't get a foothold, a handhold, or anything, because in the next moment, in a blink of an eye, whatever you're holding on to is gone. And we see the world at the snail's pace, but it's very interesting because the viewpoint from heaven towards earth, it would see people scurrying around so quickly like a bunch of ants moving at a different pace. We don't see it that way because we're right in the middle of it. So to us, we think the time, the time goes by very slowly. But then as you get older, in the blink of an eye, you go, how did I get here? Yesterday I was riding a skateboard, and now I'm, in a wheelchair. How did that happen so quickly? Because we were ignorant. We don't understand this place. We don't understand the rules. And we think that, and there's no playing by the rules, and trying to get a prize at the end. The only thing we can do is have faith and practice and understand mind. If we play by the rules of the world, most assuredly we'll be subject to birth and death. Does Gilbert die? Of course Gilbert dies. Does Gilbert get sick? Of course. I get sick. But this is a phenomenal body. If you want to stay here and play this game and accept this, go ahead. We'll have this discussion in 10 years, and maybe not. And for sure, we won't have this discussion in another 100 years. And it goes by so quickly. But we have a chance. The thing that you have right now, all of you, that's really, really incredible, is that you have the opportunity to practice. You have an opportunity to look into this world, this samsaric world, and see through it. And you have the potential to break through from birth and death. What the ancient master said, if you want to get to the matter of this, you have to break through this great birth and death, or this great birth and death, or suffer the great death, which is forgetting about the body as a body that's worth saving. What you want, it's like there's a shipwreck, and somebody's going around picking the life rafts out of the water and leaving the people in the water. It wouldn't make any sense, right? You go, what are you doing? Well, it's a life raft. I've got to save that. Who knows when I'll use it again? What about the one that's drowning there? I don't see them. I don't understand that. But that is the one that keeps coming back. The body doesn't come back. This is not a zombie world where you keep coming back with the same body all messed up. You don't even be good for 1 or 2 lifetimes before they kick you out. But think about it with wisdom. What is there? What is that what we're saving? What is that what we're trying to awaken? The body? Do you think this body can awaken to a different place? Think about that. Does that even make any sense? But that which has never been born, never been created, it didn't say couldn't sleep. And that's what's happening. I see Senta getting quizzical about that. But it's interesting, right? It's just like, how did this happen? You've got to look at these things. You've got to challenge it. You can't just say, I understand it 100%. This is the way it is. I'm just a little bit farther up than most of you. And I'm just sharing with you what I figured out. But it's worth sharing. It's something that, irregardless of what happens, whether you're real or you're not real, it will be good for you in this lifetime. So the worst thing that could happen to me is if I die, and then there's a God there, and he says, hey, man, you were really off of that. You were really wrong. And I said, but I taught the people to be good to each other, to harmonize and everything. That counts for something. Not bad, right? Can't be too bad. Hopefully I won't be roasting marshmallows in where, or maybe the marshmallows are roasting me. But I don't think so. The thing about what I'm presenting to you is that it makes great sense. And it has made great sense from close to the beginning yet I had many questions. Oh, so many questions. Question after question after question, error after error after error of trying to understand what this is all about. Little by little, reading the sutras, reading the treatises of the masters, then I realized that my approach is getting more refined and clear. And the more I put it into practice, this world becomes clearer to me. I don't want you to go and say, and just discount yourself and say, I'm not going to live in this world. What use is it? It is not in this way. This body is valuable. It's useful, especially it's useful for the practice. It enables you to contemplate what you're hearing. And that's good. So I started off with contemplation, but it is in this way that you have to understand what contemplation is that when you sit to meditate, you're in a state of stillness. Now that state of stillness is there irregardless of whether you're looking at it or not, but what you're doing is you're allowing this portion of mind to stabilize so that this world is seen as it is, that it's impermanent, it's transient, but you're looking at what has never been born. You're looking at what has never been a thought. Mind can think, but it is not made of thoughts. It makes thoughts. There's a difference. And it uses thoughts. Thoughts, it's not used by thoughts. When it's used by thoughts, it's subject to habitual patterns. But when you meditate, you apply the mind continuously, holding on to the present moment, looking directly into mind. What are you looking at? What do you see when you look into mind? Anybody know?
Emptiness.
Emptiness? Anybody else?
Mind.
Mind. Can you see emptiness?
No.
Now the answer comes slower, huh? Shemta, you have to have faith in yourself. You got it, but don't allow the self to come in. Can you see emptiness? No, emptiness can see you, but you cannot see emptiness. So you turn around and say something like that, and then people say, what? And they go, I don't know, but she sounds very sagacious. But in any case, what we're doing is we're seeing things clearly. We do not dwell on emptiness, okay? We cannot hold on to the emptiness. We don't hold on to the phenomena. It's just this, right? Just this, nothing more than that. So when you're sitting and you're looking into mind, you're looking into mind, that's it. What does mind see? Mind sees mind. It doesn't matter if there's an appearance or no appearance. Nevertheless, the perception of mind is present, immaculately present. It is illuminated, present, aware of all phenomena. It does not throw the phenomena out the window. That doesn't make any sense. If you say you're going to clean your house, do you throw out all your furniture? Well, maybe if you're Billy McCritty, you would, but he'll restore it back again. But that doesn't make sense. When we clean house, all we're doing is utilizing mind in a correct way. When we do that, then the obscurations of the mind have no impact anymore. They will still appear in accordance with causes and conditions, and their frequency and intensity will diminish as one holds onto mind. As one holds onto mind and does not chase after thought, the mind becomes clearer and quieter. And it isn't that it becomes clearer so much as the opacity of the mind where there's like a dull film of self there begins to be wiped off, and then the mind sees clearly. Then the self is no longer present. It's just the way it is. So this is how we practice, this is how we contemplate. You just keep looking directly there, and you understand what you're doing. You don't have to make thoughts disappear. You don't have to make images disappear. You just have to illuminate them equally with the mind's own intrinsic nature and power. The more power we give to the intrinsic nature of mind, the stronger and clearer the mind becomes in this little corner here. And it's able to overcome these appearances. That's why I said earlier today I was writing, and the whole story was one where I stopped Shifu with as he was passing by before a retreat, and we were by ourselves. And I said, Shifu, I understand how this works. It's like sticking a stick into the spokes of a bike. As soon as you do that, the bike stops moving. And he just looked at me, thought about it, and he said, yes, that's it. And I was walking away, then he said, Gilbert, but remember, it only stops for you. And what that means is that one is kind of a trying to reach nirvana, and the other one is taking care of other sentient beings and protecting them and showing the way. Those sentient beings, of course, are illusory, and we know that essentially it's just a part of mind that's been trapped in this dream. But nevertheless, there's still a carry for that. If it wasn't, I would not be talking to you right now. I would be engaged in some other activity. But this is important. And I hope you come to that realization how precious these types of lectures are. And I hope that you take them and you share them with others. One of the things that I had said to the group in the retreat was in my first lecture, in my first retreat, I had told Shifu that all the time he had all this array of jewels in front of him, and they were free for people to pick up. And no sooner did a person pick up a jewel in front of him, another one replaced it. It was just in this way. And it's important. And then later in some sutras, they actually refer to that, of picking up these gems like that, because it's just this way that these gems are so precious and so helpful. And even if the only person that uses them is you, that's good. But all the more so if you share them with others, the jewels become even of greater preciousness. So I hope you can see that for yourself. So, Omitofo. I'll take questions. Santa? No? No questions today?
Angela, go ahead.
Hello, Gilbert. Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are up there. So there's another Angela. There's a picture there.
Yeah, I could change my name.
That's Chi Chern's picture, right?
There's two Angelas.
Master Chi Chern's picture? The one
Yes,
with
yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so my question is, I still don't kind of, I still don't really get how the phenomenon of, so on one hand, our individual experience is our own mind's perception. But how do we account for then there is this thing, but it's not all my imagination or hallucination, right? There is, of course, we have what we call shared or common perception. And then, of course, then there's different sentient beings, right? So there's like the different people here. So obviously you are not part of my imagination. Well, it would be a rude shock if you are, so I think that there is kind of another sentient mind called Gilbert, then called Santa, and then called all the other people here. So how does that work? How does, having different beings and then yet all is mind, how does it gel together?
It's very, very complicated. I would suggest you read the Dharma Vibhaga Sutra, the Maitreya's Sutra on distinguishing nature. And that goes into great detail of what we share in terms of our mind and what we don't share. It's very, very deep. I wish I could explain that to you, but it would take a long time. It's incredible because here, collectively, if we look on the screen, you may all have a screen with the people that are in the group here. We share my voice, we share your question, we share the experience, but we each are connecting to it in a different way. And so we have a shared karma, shared phenomena, and then we have a separate phenomena, which is from our own experiences in from the eighth consciousness that are peculiar to our own experiences through samsara. It's very, very complicated. Like I say, if you wanted to look at that, that's probably where you want to do that. I don't know, Sent, if you remember how to write that down or not. There it is right there. See, and so it's Dharma Dharmata Vibhaga, and it's the sutra on Maitreya Sutra, the Milafos Sutra on the intrinsic nature of mind. Very deep, but it is from there where I was talking about in the retreat, this non-conceptual wakefulness. This is a real important key, this non-conceptual wakefulness, because it is the Buddha mind operating within samsara. And that's the difference. When the Buddha mind operates within samsara, but it's in a state of non-conceptual wakefulness. So if somebody says to Milafo, gee, my knees, you're really fat, he would go, you think so? In the past time, just 1,000 years ago, I was really skinny, but now they're depicting me as being fat. It's not going to bother him, because he's in non-conceptual wakefulness. And he might go fatter. That's a joke, sorry. But in any case, it's something that you see. But as you begin to do it, you're right where you should be, right on track. I mean, really, really right on track in terms of understanding the questions. What questions should you be asking? Because quite so, it is so intricate and so incredibly wonderful, because in that particular study or treatise, it is something that is gone into in great detail. And just reading that, and it's going to take you a lot of readings, but just reading that, it will blow you away. You're ready for it. Okay. You're actually really ready for it right now, because you have the question. The question is not one that comes to everybody, but because you have the question, you can do that, and you try to see what you can find on that. I'm sure you can find it on online somewhere. Okay, but it's interesting. Again, it doesn't give up its wisdom easily, but it's very much worth you going for. Okay, because your question is a very detailed one. It's fascinating, but it's like, oh, what did I just read? And you have to go back again. You know, there's times I'll read the same passage like 5 times, especially if it doesn't have too much commentary to it. Okay, good question. That's like a high level question. Nobody wants to ask a question because they'll think they have a lowbrow question, but there's no such thing as a lowbrow question.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
It's a question about the practice, not about today's lecture.
All right.
So is one experiences, let's say samadhi, and then unification with the body, and then unification with the environment, and those experiences, at least for myself, they tend to ebb and flow. So sometimes, I can experience them all in one sitting, or, sometimes I can, let's say, move forward in that unification, sometimes move backwards. Is that pretty common that it can ebb and flow and, go forward and backwards in relation to those experiences? Or should I come to expect something that's progressive? We should just always be advancing in regards to, unification with the body and then the mind, or then the environment.
Yeah, we're staying with that is like a skip in a record. You just skip and skip and skip, or Groundhog's Day or Groundhog meditation every single time. There's no magic with any of that, and you're kind of like exhibit 1 as to the dangers of working with the unified mind, because you just get stuck there. You've got to break through that. That's really important. You cannot stay. It takes some accomplishment to get to unified mind, but getting to unified mind is like a rut in the road. You can stay in that rut and you can't move on, because then it's kind of like replacing the little I with the big I, and everything is you and you are everything. That's the one I always mention. That's kind of like a Beetle gobbledygook. I am you and you are me and we are all together kind of thing. It is not in this way. It is just, we break through and shatter through all of that. When you're unified with the universe, the true wisdom slices through the sky. It slices right through any image of this world. What is beyond that, you could never know. But you've got to get out of unified mind. You have to pick up your method, get out of that. You're too good of a practitioner to get stuck there. Okay, but it's easy to get stuck there, and it just comes in a plethora of different unified mind experiences that entice you and keep you there, kind of like you're stuck in a purgatory. And you don't want to do that. You want to get out of that. It's a little more elevated than purgatory, but I don't want to make it too romantic, or you'll think that it's a nice place to stay. You got to get out of it. Okay, you got to pick up your method, move on, and don't look for experiences or higher experiences. Just remember what I said. It's a sword slashing through the sky. There's no way you can conceptualize about it. That's what we're working towards, is non-conceptual wakefulness, not conceptual wakefulness of a higher level of a dream state. Okay, very, very. I'm kind of saying this because this is one of the things I was really emphasizing in the retreat, because it's a pitfall. It's an easy pitfall to fall into, because it's such a nice experience to get somewhere, and then you rest your laurels there, and then your laurels can just be stuck on your meditation cushion all the time, and the only thing you're going to do is get a flat laurel out of it. So you want to move along, okay? Move along, pick up your method, break camp and keep moving. All right. You got to get out of that. All right. And not get out of it for higher experiences. Just get out of it. Remember, it's non-conceptual wakefulness. That'll be the key for you. Okay. Just kind of hold on to that word. I mean, you're a great practitioner, and you have a great heart, and I don't want you stuck there. I mean, it takes a while to get to where you're at, but it's not where you should be. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for asking the question. It's a good question, and it was one I wanted to touch on today. Anything else? Nobody? We're going to be gone in a moment. This is a good chance to talk about your method, especially if you didn't go to the retreat, making sure you're working well. Robert's picking up his hand.
Somewhere in your last posting, I think you used two words called silent contemplation. Many misunderstood what it is. Can you kind of elaborate silent contemplation?
Because it isn't. I kind of touched on it to some extent. That it is not going into a dark cave, dark samadhi, and it's not very important. Okay, pay attention. It is not a mental state. Okay, it is not a mental state. A mental state is conceptual. It is the source of all mental states. So the mind is being used to connect with the source of all mental states. On both sides, it is mind. And so it's silent. It's infinite. It's silent because no matter what the image is and what appearances are on there, they don't affect the surface of the mirror. The mirror does not reject some image on it because it's profane, nor does it only welcome sacred images. There's an issue as to what is that in terms of morality. And it was very interesting because we had a monk that was there, wonderful monk, Thera, what was his name? Thera, like Changa, something like that. The monk at the retreat. He called himself Bante, but that's just like a teacher. But I think it's Vera.
Panya.
Oh, Vera Panya. Because I remember I was thinking Vera Ponyo, but it's Vera Panya because I just said he was like a monk friend. But he was asking me about morality and how morality fit in. And it's very interesting because as we look at things, we see things not as that we have to block this thought or accept this thought. We don't have to do any of that. We have the foundation of right view. So when we sit to meditate, we just use that foundation there without thinking of it. And just allow the mind to manifest naturally, knowing that we don't have to push anything out of mind, okay? And so when we sit in silent contemplation, that is precisely what's happening, is we're not looking at any image in mind, but we're not closing our mental eye to any image in mind. They're all in a state of upika, or equipoise or equanimity, okay? And so that is silent contemplation. There's no need to engage in thought other than to maintain the single thought of whatever method one is using. Okay, so that's silent contemplation. Okay. You guys are allowing me to add the things that I wanted to talk about, so that's good. But of course, we could be going for 5 hours, and everybody's going to say, "Don't ask me any more questions." All right. Any last question? One last one. No, be going, gone. No questions? Okay. All right. And to those of you who went to the retreat and I didn't get a chance to say goodbye, I'm sorry. I'm now, from now on, I'm not going to leave on the same day as I finished the retreat. It was just too much of a rush, and I just ended up missing my flight anyway, and I didn't have an opportunity to talk to individuals, and I feel very, very bad because you all invested quite a bit of time to come, but we'll see, in the future if I can meet up with you. Okay, I'm very happy. I hope the people who went to the retreat will, got something out of it. I'd like to see some write-ups on it to see, what your opinions were, what your experiences were. People might be able to do it, but not only that, but it helps you preserve what was meaningful in the retreat. A lot of what I said today was what I said daily to everybody, just in different ways, but it just seemed to pay off, and a lot of people made some pretty good progress, very, very great progress. And some of them were kind of like banging right there on the door on it. And probably the only thing, and I didn't expect that. I didn't expect people would get that close. And what happened was people became afraid. They had never been to a place where it's illuminated, but there's no you. There was no person, there's no self. And so they went, I got to get out of here, because the self's going, we got to get out of here. Let's get out of here right now while we still have a self. And I'm going, no, that's where you have to push and break through. You're right there. But now I know that I underestimated the people that came there. And there were several people that got up that far, and I just hadn't trained them to do that, because we were only into the second, third day at that point. And so they progressed really fast. So I'm very happy with that. But it lets me know that the system that I've developed, the elements, it does work. And so if you use it, you can talk to people who went to the retreat, and they will confirm that there's a great benefit to that. Okay. All right. I will finish up. We'll think of something else for next week to talk about, and we'll take it from there. So keep practicing. Thank you for attending, and invite your friends and relatives and even your enemies. You never know. Okay. All right. Omitofu. Good night.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Thank you, Gilbert.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Gilbert. Good night.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Thank you, Gilbert.
It's good to
night.
see you all.
Good night.
Yeah, it's good to see you.